So I'm about to sell my trusty old Nord Stage first generation, and I just want to show you the sounds that I like to load it up with and try to explain why I think it's still a great and very viable keyboard for any touring musician, or for playing at home, or for so many other purposes. So note that this is the 73 key version with lightweight hammer fall style keyboard. It may not be the greatest for playing piano pieces on, but you can actually, if you have it at home and you're practicing every day with it, you can really get used to playing dynamic on a keyboard like this. That's what I've been doing for a very long time. Of course, if you have the opportunity when you go on a gig, you can hook it up with MIDI from another stage piano with proper weighted keys. So I probably put that underneath, and I put this one on top, and then I have this one for playing synthesizer and playing hammered and everything. And then I run MIDI from the other keyboard up into this one, and all the sounds are going to come out of the Nord. But I have like weighted keys for Rhodes and for acoustic piano, and I have these nice organ keys for Hammond organ and synth. And that's really like the ideal setup, if you ask me, in terms of the keyboard action. Probably one of the biggest concerns about like these older Nords is that they have very, very limited memory. So this one only have 128 megabyte of memory, and after the operating system is on there, it even takes like there's a little less left. So you really have to think about budgeting when you are downloading sounds from the Nord website. So I just want to show you the setup that I came up with here and the compromises that I had to make, but also how great it can actually work out. So I picked the Bright Grand Yamaha S4 in the medium size, so that's around 80 megabyte or so. So it's actually taking up the majority of memory on this Nord Stage. But it's a great piano that sounds amazing. So right now I only have a little bit of reverb on this sound, and it sounds like this. So now I'm playing quite softly, but this is a Bright Grand, so you can hear when you play harder, it gets really, really bright. So you can hear, if you're playing something like that, it's really cutting through the mix and it's really upfront, lots of presence. But maybe that's not always what you want. Here I think it's maybe a little bit too aggressive. So what I like to do is I take the EQ and then I just roll off like 5 dB of the treble. And it's suddenly a lot more compelling to listen to if it's not like in a full band setting. So if you're practicing at home, or it's maybe a trio or something like that, I'd probably roll a little bit off in the treble. And about the different sizes, you're probably thinking, yeah, if I'm going to have a Nord, I want to have the biggest samples that they have, and this is the medium sample, so there's like large and extra large as well. But the thing is, they optimized it a lot, so most of the stuff that's going on in the middle, you won't hear any difference. And the stuff where they sacrificed is like in the extremes in terms of the range of the instrument. And this is a 73 key keyboard, so it's not even like I have the full 88 keys. So I don't see why I should have like a lot of samples that I can't even reach unless I use the octave buttons. And yet it's still like 90% of the time I'm playing within the middle. I don't even know how much you can see on the camera, but I'm playing within the middle 4 octaves or something like that, by far the most of the time. I'm not playing a lot of classical music, and even if you do come out and play on the really high notes and stuff like that, it still sounds great. I can do an octave down. So I think it's a really good compromise choosing the medium version. So what else do I have in here? If I press here, you see it actually skipped past upright and it skipped past electric grand. So I don't have any upright pianos, and I don't have the Yamaha CP80 electric grand in there. I think the Yamaha CP80 electric grand, I don't like the samples of that. It doesn't sound very good or realistic. If you should pick the one where they sample it through an amp and they did it in stereo, it actually does sound quite good, but it takes up way too much space. I think it's 60 megabyte on its own. I do miss the upright pianos though. Even just the Rain piano, which is not very large in footprint, sounds really, it has like a lot of character that I love, but you have to make some sacrifices. And if I want the medium version of the Yamaha Grand, it's just there's not more space. But aside from that, I have a few Rhodes electric pianos in here, Fender Rhodes. The first one is the Nefertiti Fender Rhodes, and that's definitely a priority of mine to get that in there, because that is a beautiful instrument. Just octave it down so you can see when I'm playing bass. Right, so that sounds really great. And then we have the Sparkle Top, which is an even older Fender Rhodes. The Nefertiti is from 1970, Mark I Suitcase. The Sparkle Top is a Suitcase as well, but it's from when they had felt hammers instead of rubber tip hammers, and they had different tines and stuff like that. So they have quite a bit of a different character. Let's go back to the Nefertiti. And then finally I have the one that's just called Mark I Low Deep. That's, I think it's a late 70s Mark I. I'm not sure, but it's voiced, so it's like very mellow and not so bright. I forgot I have octave down. So you can hear the difference there. I think the low deep is really great for like new soul kind of like stuff. Right. Then I have the Wurlitzer. I really love Wurlitzers. Let me octave it down again. Fuck. Yeah, so I screwed that one up. It's not the best sample Wurlitzer that I tried playing, but it does have that signature barking sound. I don't particularly like the amped version. There's an amped version of the Wurlitzer where it's sampled through an amplifier, and another one of the Fender Rhodes. I don't remember which model Fender Rhodes. But I don't like those that are through an amp, because I feel like you can't really dial in how much saturation you want from the amp, and it's not it's kind of like, if you want exactly that sound of the amp, it's nice, but you can't do so much with effects without it sounding a little bit weird. So most of the time I prefer just to use the amp simulation on the Wurlitzer here, and I did like an A/B test at one point, and I came to the conclusion that it was actually really close. So added a little bit of overdrive and some amp simulation, and I think I dialed up the bass a little bit as well, just to compensate, because if you use amp simulation you usually lose some bass. So that are the samples that I chose to include on my Nord stage, and I would argue that I could play pretty much any gig only with these sounds. I don't really have string sounds and stuff like that. I don't do that much, and this keyboard doesn't really do it. It doesn't do custom sampling like some of the later models do. I've been doing quite fine without that. Just quickly show you the organ section, so I can like initialize a split with two manual organ manuals here. So let's set it up for kind of like a Jimmy Smith type of sound. Something like this. And that's the thing I really love, is that it's really quick to dial in the sound that you need. So, oh, not that, like that. I really love the organ simulation in here, especially because I usually play it through a real Leslie, and just amazing. And if you need to have like a synth sound, you can really quickly even dial something in. So, oh, whoops, that wasn't what I wanted. So just initialize the sound, so it's just a sawtooth wave. And then what I'll do is maybe I'll go with a square wave. Let's set it so the filter responds to the envelope, and then turn on the filter. And then adjust the envelope. turn up the, oh, like that. Turn up the amount. Really classic sound. This has some features that are kind of stolen from the Nord Lead 3, including this feature where you can like have unison mode without sacrificing polyphony. So now it's just regular. And then if I turn up this, then it adds more voices. So right now it's actually adding 7.5 voices in some way. I don't really understand how that works, but you can try to dial it into 2 voices. It should be. So it gets a little bit of a chorus effect, and it's a little bigger sound. And oh, right. And you can of course choose different waveforms. So you can have, for instance, if you want to have 2 oscillators, you have this option that's called detune. So in this case, it would be like a saw wave in 2 octaves, so 1 up here and 1 down there. And if I want to, I can adjust the interval. So now they're unison, or I can do it an octave above. Yeah, and for doing stuff like that, I suggest putting on the mono mode. No matter how many keys you press, it's always only one that will trigger. That way you can play really dirty. And you have legato mode as well. You can set that to auto, so you can play like if you play staccato. There's no glide, and if you don't, there is. Maybe I need to. So you can do thrills and stuff like that. Pretty standard functionality. So the synthesizer is not the most overwhelming thing, but it can do some pretty cool things. So the most crazy thing about this keyboard in terms of like far out functionality, or what do you call it, is this morph feature where you can hold down. If I want to have the aftertouch, maybe I should do like the mod wheel. So I can hold down this button, and then I can turn a number of parameters I want to change with my mod wheel. It has to be those with like an LED encoder on them. I can maybe turn up the volume as well, and I can even, if I have the Hammond organ, now there's no sound in the Hammond organ because there's no drawbars out, but I can even do like stuff like this. So see what happens when I turn the modulation wheel. I have like this one, this one, this one, and some drawbars moving. Doesn't sound very good, but sometimes you can get really cool results. So yeah, that's just to show you a really cool feature if you haven't seen that before. Cool. I think that concludes my video on how to get the most out of your 10-year-old Nord stage piano. Hope you like it.